One thing we're going to need to be really good at this year is changing raw scores into percent. So a raw score is just like how many you got right out of how many were possible for each assignment or test or quiz or whatever it happens to be. And then the percent changes that into something that's easy to kind of compare to regardless of how many problems were possible. It might be on some assignments we have maybe 10 points possible, and on other assignments, we've got 82 or 26 or whatever it happens to be. So what I've got right here is just a sample assignment. Let's say that there were 20 points possible on this assignment and you missed 5. So the raw score would be 15 out of 20. So the way we figure that out is we say, well, look, if we missed 5 out of the 20, we're going to do 20 and we're going to subtract 5 and we end up with 15. So that's the number that goes right here. So we got 15 out of 20. This right here is a raw score, and that's valuable, but more value would be what is the percent that we got correct. So here's what we're going to do. Whenever you've got a raw score, you're going to take the top number and you're going to divide it by the bottom number. You're going to take how many you got right and divide it by the number that were possible on the assignment. So I'm going to come up here and we're going to do 15 divided by 20. We hit enter and we get 0.75. Now, hopefully from elementary school, we're familiar with how to change a decimal to a percent and percent to decimal. This right here is a decimal and we want to change it to a percent. So what we do is we take that decimal and we move it over 2 places. So I move it over 1, 2, so this would turn into a 75. If you want to have the calculator help you out with this, we could move it over 2 places by just timesing by 100 and we end up with 75. So on this problem right here, this is 75%. So that's the score that we'd want to report on that. Now, it's pretty easy when it works out like that. A nice even number like 15 out of 25 works really well. But let's say there were 21 points possible and we missed 6. So let's compute a raw score for that. So we're going to take 21 and we're going to subtract 6. So we end up with 15 again. But this time the number of points possible is 21. So this is the raw score right here. And again, raw scores are valuable, but we want to change that to a percent. So again, we're going to bring up the calculator. We're going to take our raw score and we're going to divide it by the number of points that were possible. So 15 divided by 21, and we end up with 0.714. Now, this again is a decimal. We want to change it to a percent. So I could visualize just moving this over 1, 2 places. This is going to be 71.4. If I wanted to, I could just times that by 100, and that'll move the decimal over. Now, we normally don't report tenths of a percent when we're, getting assignment scores and stuff like that. We usually just round it to the nearest percent. So rounded to the nearest percent, this is either going to be 71% or this is going to be 72%. Well, that 4 is not enough to bump that up to that 1 up to a 2, so we're going to call this 71%. So we'll come over here, we'll write 71%, and we're all set to go. So that's how to do it on a worksheet, and we're in good shape with that. Well, let's come over and take a look at one that's a little bit more complicated. Let's say we're doing a practice test, and on this practice test, there were 27 points possible, and we missed 2 of them. So we ended up with 25. Again, 27 minus 2 would be 25. So here's our raw score. We want to change that to a percent. So I'll bring up the calculator, and we're going to do 25 divided by 27. And we get this right here, 0.9259. So again, move the decimal over visually if you want to. So this is going to be moving it over 2 places. So this is going to be 92.5. Again, if you really would like to visualize this a little bit better, you're welcome to multiply by 100. So we get 92.5. Now, that 0.5 right there, remember the rules for rounding. So this is going to go from, it's either going to be 92% or 93%. And this next decimal number right here, that's the deciding factor. If it's 5 or more, we round up. If it's a 4 or less, we leave it alone. Since this is a 5, we're going to bump that up, and we're going to call that a 93. Now, it's amazing how many times people forget how to round, so we want to make sure that we're good at that. Okay, let's take a look at the last example that I've got here. We're going to be doing a lot of ICANN checklists. Our goal is to get 80% of most of what we do with practice work right. When we do these self-assessments, we're going to kind of judge ourselves on a 0 through 4 scale. And when we get to the end of the unit, we'll do a checklist like this. So on this particular checklist, this happens to be from 7th grade, and this is Unit 1. So this person went through and rated themselves. They said, hey, I got a 4 on understanding and defining integers. So they feel pretty good about it. Absolute value, a little bit shaky. Multiplying and dividing, they feel really good. Rewriting the combining integer problems, they feel good, but occasionally they make some mistakes on combining integers. And then the story problems in context, solving problems with integers in the context of a real world problem, they're a little bit shaky. Now, where did I get these numbers right here? I went through and said if they got a 4, a 4, a 4, and a 4, 4 times 4 is 16. So we're just adding up how many points they got here. 3 and 3, that makes 6, and then they got a 2 right here. So if we add these together, 2 plus 6 is 8. 8 plus 16 is 24. 24 out of 28 is the raw score on this. Now, we want to change that into a percent, so we've got a good sense of how well do I think I'm going to do on the test for this. So let's pull up the calculator, and let's say we got 24 divided by 28, and that's 85.7. Now, I normally don't move the decimal over by multiplying by 100. I just look at it and do it in my head. So this is 85.7. So it's either going to be 85 or 86. That 7 is enough to bump it up to a 6. So this is going to be 86%. So according to their little checklist here, they're thinking they're going to get about an 86% on the test. Now, that's not a perfect predictor, but it's not too bad. Now, I do want to show you one other quick way that you could do this. Instead of doing it this way where we added these up, we could say, look, let's just keep track of how many points we didn't get. Like the maximum possible in each category is 4, so we'd lose a point for that one. So that's a -1, lose a point for that one, that's a -1, and lose 2 points for that one, so that's a -2. So altogether, we missed 4 points altogether. So the total points possible is 28 minus 4, so we end up with 24. So that's another way to do the same type of thing. But again, the percent would be the same. So there's how you do changing a raw score into a percent. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of that, so make sure you know how to do it. And if you don't know how to do it or have any questions, please make sure you ask.